What's up, golf addicts, tour junkies, after dark, presented by DraftKings. With you, your boy DB here, my partner in crime, Pat Perry. We're ready to go, and we're fresh off a huge week. In fact, right here on this very show and on our podcast and for free on our website, we wrote up one Hudson Swafford. We mentioned him here, Tour Junkies After Dark, at 150 to 1, and he won. 150 to 1. So while you knuckleheads said, no, I don't want to watch, it's football season. Let me go sweat a 30 to 1 14 parlay in the NFL. While you're doing that and ignoring this, 150 to 1 winners, baby. Winners. Hudson Swafford. This is money-making season. These are weak field events. They're not sexy. I get it. But this is where anybody can win. Can win. You got to grind it out. You got to put in the work. But we're here to do some of that for you. Pat's going to tell you about the golf course for the Sanderson Farms Championship. We're going to talk about a couple names we disagree with. And we're going to throw some sportsbook love for DK Sportsbook and some numbers we like. Pat, hit him with the golf course.
Yes, great course this week for the Sanderson Farms Championship. We are at the Country Club of Jackson in Jackson, Mississippi. It is a par 72 playing at almost 7,500 yards. We've got 144 players again in the field this week, just like last week. T65 and ties will make the cut. This course kind of has an old school classic Donald Ross feel to it. You've got, sort of raised greens that are, kind of medium as far as, how big they are. They're not that small, but they're sort of medium there. But you got Bermuda grass tee to green. So we're back on Bermuda after the off week here in Paspalum land of the Dominican Republic. So it's a normal grass. Easy for me to say, right? Easy for me to say. This is DK After Dark. Here's a little crazy. Okay. Anyway, but this is a course that, like, we've typically seen kind of your ball strikers, your accurate drivers play well here, as evidenced by Ryan Armour winning here in 2017, his first ever win. But Cam Champ and Sebastian Munoz in the last couple of years basically just changed that whole narrative and bomb and gouge this course to death. And basically Cam just said, I can hit it as far as I want off the tee. The rough isn't all that bad. And I want to get shorter irons into these greens because they're more receptive in that way. The greens are not difficult at all. I mean, they have very little undulation. They're never running that quick as far as the step meter is concerned from year after year. So this is a course they definitely can score on. We see 18 under around that score win. But other than that, I'm looking at course history, looking at form, looking at strokes gained off the tee and approach. Now, I do think scrambling matters some because if you do miss these greens, you got to be able to get up and down because like we see with like a Donald Ross kind of design, a lot of runoffs around these greens, and you got to be able to, they can be a little bit tough. Plus, I know, because I can get the yips out of the Bermuda grass, rough and around the greens. I mean, it can be tough. So you got to be skilled when it comes to scrambling on these on this Bermuda turf. So there you go. That is a quick course rundown. I'm going to drink some more wine so that maybe I can, get myself together here. And you talk about whatever you want to add to the course and any.
Yeah.
By the way, let me mention one thing. Par 5 scoring is very key this week. Now, we see that on most par 72 courses. But this week, these par 5s are relatively difficult compared to most courses on tour. And we've seen year after year, the folks, the players that can attack these par 5s and do well on these par 5s are going to be up near the top of the leaderboard at the end. So I think par 5 scoring is very important this week.
Yeah, agree with you there. I mean, for me, it's going to come down to, who can compete in a golf tournament where 20 under is probably going to, be the number, which kind of opens it up to just about anybody here. I said this on the podcast. Length is always an advantage, but there are some courses where it's a prerequisite. This is not a course where I feel like it's a prerequisite. You could be a little shorter of a hitter and make up for it on the greens here as a Bermuda specialist and come out and win this thing. But the long hitters for sure always have an advantage, which Cam Champ and Munoz have proven that, as you said, over the last couple of years. I'm looking at guys who are long. I'm looking at guys who can score, take advantage of the par fives, like you mentioned, and guys who are very comfortable on grainy Bermuda here in Mississippi, in the South. We're not in Mississippi. We're in Georgia, but tons of Bermuda around here. And it is tricky. You got to know how to chip out of it. You got to know how to putt out of it. This place is Bermuda from, beginning to end. The rough is Bermuda. It gets kind of weird as well. So you gotta be familiar with that stuff and comfortable with it. So I think that's the key for me. Yeah, let's get started. I got one name near the top that you faded, and I don't know that I agree with the fade. And normally, I would tend to agree with fading the defending champion. But Sebastian Munoz arrives as your defending champion, but also in very good form. A level of play out of Sebastian Munoz that we have never seen lately. I mean, just in his last few events, he finished 39th at the U.S. Open, very tough course. Finished 8th at Eastlake, but actually I think it was top 3 or 4 if you don't count the handicap strokes at Eastlake. Finished 8th at Olympia Fields, very tough course for the BMW. Finished 18th at the Northern Trust. I mean, the recent form for Munoz has been very, very good. And coming off the victory here just last year, defending champs, he's got to be feeling good. And he's overwhelmingly better at Bermuda than any other green surface when you look historically over his career. It's the only surface that he gained strokes putting on throughout his career. He's plenty long, decent scrambler, just decent all around. And I don't think because of the name, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of ownership on him. I mean, maybe 10, 12% owned across a lot of GPPs. So I don't know. I think I don't know that I would fade Munoz. I'm not saying I'm in love with the play, but I don't know that I don't agree with the fade. I think too much hate for your boy Sebastian Munoz.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably a little bit different than you. Let me fix my collar here.
Oh,
I'm probably a little bit different than you in that I do think there's going to be some ownership towards him. I mean, if anybody's paying attention, which maybe they're not because it's football season, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been playing really well, just like all the things you said. He's been playing really well. He probably should be higher owned. If he's not high owned this week, he probably should be higher owned than maybe most people might think, just because he is playing well leading up to this event. But I look at it. For one, I don't always like to take the defending champ, which maybe not the sharpest thing in the world, but I don't like it. I don't like, you look at his strokes gained approach, he's 86th in the field. He's 77th in ball striking. He's 98th in par 5 scoring, which is a stat I really like this week. And so, I mean, that's near the bottom. So I'm just not a big fan of a guy who is coming in good form, who is a defending champion. He's at 9,900, which I just feel like is a little bit too pricey for him. So yeah, he's going to be a fade for me. Now, if I start to see like if ownership projections say 5%, 7, 8%, I may look at him. But I think if it's any higher than that, I'm going to fade him this week.
Okay.
Now, my guy for you, who I never can get right. And so I really am almost saying this to have you sell us on this guy, because I don't think Siwoo Kim is doing anything this week. Now, I like the 8K range. I think it's a decent range outside of maybe somebody like Sergio, who I think you're just throwing money, like that GIF where the kid is throwing money out of the window. That's what I think you're doing with Sergio. But for me, Siwoo Kim, while he is checking boxes, a lot of them, and Bermuda grass is actually his worst surface, but he's won, as you mentioned on the podcast, he's won on Bermuda grass, greens and those tournaments. But I just don't like Siwoo this week. I feel like he's going to have way too high of ownership. He has not fared well at this event in the last 2 times that he's played it. So I need you to sell me on some Siwoo. Give me maybe a glimmer of hope that I should play him, because I do know that he has had some good form lately.
Yeah, for me, the Siwoo Kim play is in a field this week. you get a guy who is very boomer bust. And so for tournaments and GPPs, that's what you want. I mean, or you can afford to have. Um, Definitely a very low floor as a miscut, DFL, pissing you off, tweeting at us, telling us what a loser I am for playing him. He definitely has that floor. But his upside is a win, is a top 5, and he scores a lot of DraftKings points when he does it. He checks the box in par 5 scoring. Distance hits it a long way. The iron play has been very solid for the last 24 rounds. Greens and regulation numbers are good. He's an aggressive player. Honestly, the aggression actually cost him a few weeks back at the Wyndham when he finished third at Sedgefield Country Club. He should have won that tournament. He made a poor decision on like number 6 or 7 off the tee. That was a foolish decision. It cost him strokes. He ended up making a comeback and then losing by a shot or something. He's an aggressive player. He can score. So in these birdie fests, I like him. He gives you a lot of upside. And yes, it is kind of weird that historically he's a worse putter on Bermuda, but his victory at the Players Championship, the strongest field in golf a couple years back, came on grainy Bermuda. And the near win, the third place finish just a few weeks ago that I mentioned, came at the Wyndham, also on grainy Bermuda. So he can pop on Bermuda, even though historically he doesn't. I think you just get a lot of win. I think you get true win equity for Siwoo Kim at $8,400, and a lot of people are afraid to play him. So your sentiment is pretty common.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily trunk slam. That happens with Siwoo all
100%.
the time. He will screw your entire week.
But it would also be the most Siwoo thing ever for him to run away with the tournament and win it by 6 shots. Like, he could do that in this field. He really, really could. I don't feel great about him in cash plays. I don't love that. But for a tournament play, he's 55-1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I also like that. That's right up there with Luke List, who's $600 more expensive than him. Same odds. I don't know. I think he gives you the win equity.
You know what he's also good at?
What?
Cameos.
He always great at cameos.
If he wins this week, I'm going to pay whatever it is to get a cameo, and it's going to be a gift to you, DB.
Oh, that would be great. What if you were pricing PGA Tour players based on cameos, he would be your top price guy of the week. He would be where Scotty Scheffler is right now.
Yeah,
he'd be approaching like 11-8 is where he would be.
Yeah,
great cameo guy, Siwoo Kim. All right, let's get to the DraftKings Sportsbook. I mentioned it. I do like Siwoo Kim at 55-1 as an outright bet. For me, I'm not going to go that short. If I were going to go, the shortest number that I would look at was Sam Burns earlier today. We're recording this on Monday night. Earlier today, he was 35-1. He's already been bet down to 28-1. If you want Sam Burns, you better get on him now. I actually see that number getting shorter. So 28-1 at the most for me on Sam Burns. But then I'm not going to bet anybody else really until we get to Siwoo Kim at 55-1 for all the reasons I mentioned. Do love Sam Burns. Great ball striker, a long hitter, fantastic on Bermuda, good form. Everything converges for Sam Burns, which is why he's at that number. At 66-1, one of my favorite players in the entire field is Cam Davis. The Aussie hits it a long way, takes advantage of par 5, scoring well. Form is fantastic. I love Cam Davis. I said this on the podcast that we just recorded. There are basically 3 players I like more than Cam Davis in this entire field. DraftKings, outright odds, all that thrown out the window. I would take Scotty Scheffler, Sung J M, and Sam Burns over Cam Davis, and that's it. So at 66-1, I'm going to pay up for that, and I bet that number gets shorter come Tuesday afternoon. So everybody needs to jump on it if you can get on it in states where that is legal. I also like Charlie Hoffman at 70-1. The PGA Tour journeyman has been known to get hot. He played really well at the at the Dominican Republic event last week. Like that for Charlie Hoffman at 70-1. And if I'm going to go deep, I'm going to go Nick Taylor at 125-1. The Canadian got his first PGA Tour win here a couple of years back. Just won Pebble Beach earlier this year, which seems like 3 years ago, but he just won Pebble Beach, much stronger field. He's one of those that doesn't hit it a long way, but the ball striking, the putting prowess, and his record here is tremendous. Even after the victory, he's racked up good finishes here at the Sanderson Farm. So 125 to 1 is a big number for a guy like that. And then I'm going to go with a guy that I just, multiple. I think he's he is. He's a multiple PGA Tour winner, longtime PGA Tour mainstay. Typically plays better on the West Coast events, but he has win equity and he hits it a mile. But nobody likes him because he's slow as Christmas. JB Holmes at 175 to 1, I think could, if he gets a little hot with the Bermuda, putting surfaces, I think could win this golf tournament. He's JB Holmes. Like he's done it. He's competed in majors. Like this is crazy. So it's too long of a number for JB Holmes.
Oh, that was me like lighting something on. As you weren't, that was me lighting money on fire.
Well, I mean, 175 to 1. Like you're pretty much planning on lighting it on fire.
Yeah, I know.
Unless you're Hudson Swafford last week. Boom.
Yeah. Boom. All right, so going shorter, I agree. I think Sam Burns is one of the shorter guys that I like this week at 28 to 1, despite the line movement there. I do like Doc Redman also, though, at 35 to 1. I think he's another guy that we could, easily see win his first tournament. I like Dylan Fratelli as well at 40 to 1, a guy that we mentioned on the show for the DFS show, our podcast. I think he's won before on tour. Definitely has some win equity. So I'm a fan of some Fratelli. Going a little bit longer here. One of the guys I mentioned that you didn't like, that I like, was Richie Werenski at 75 to 1. I think he's another guy that can have a good week this week. Also, Sepp Straka at 85 to 1.
Like that.
We might get back-to-back Georgia Bulldog wins. That would be pretty cool if we saw that. As far as some of the longer odds guys, a couple that I will throw out that I think could be interesting plays. You mentioned Nick Taylor, I believe, at 125 to 1. I think that's a good number for him. Another guy that I like this week is a guy I was on last week, and he started off bad but finished much stronger, and that is Rob Oppenheim at 125 to 1. I think that could be decent there. I like him as well.
That is very queasy.
It makes all these guys. I mean, JB Holmes makes.
Why is Rob Oppenheim shorter than JB Holmes?
He should be. He's playing better than him.
No, he's not. That's terrible.
Anyway, another guy coming off. I almost hit him at 225 to 1 last week, but he's a scorer. He is a great player. He's obviously coming in with some confidence, and that is Tyler McCumber at 175 to 1. I like him as well. I think he's a good long shot this week. With that second place finish, almost got into a playoff with Hudson Swafford. You and I had them both. So that would have been kind of a cool battle if they were in the playoff together.
Yeah.
It would have been like it was a win-win anyway once Mackenzie Hughes got his out of there. One of us was going to hit a good one there. So I like some Tyler McCumber at 175 to 1. So there you go.
I do have one top 20 bet that I really like. He's coming off an 11th place finish last week at Corrales. Sebastian Kaplan. We know Sebastian, his agent, he has struggled mightily over the last few months, but we heard that he went back to his hometown of Denmark, kind of got with his old coach, kind of reset the wires a little bit. And then he comes out at the Safeway, his first event back after kind of going on the little hiatus, misses the cut. But then last week, the 11th, I think that's something he can build off of. And he's a very aggressive young player. Hits it a long way, takes advantage of par fives, and this is a weak field event he can take advantage of. I mean, when he first came out on tour, he did okay. He's had some good finishes. Finished 6th at the American Express back in January, 21st at the Farmers right after that. So I think a top 20 bet. If you want a long number at a top 20, he's 12 to 1 on DK Sportsbooks. I think Sebastian Kaplan is a nice long shot T20 there if you want a piece of that.
I really like that one too.
That's it for us. Thanks for watching Tour Junkies After Dark, presented by DraftKings. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Listen, in the comments, maybe tell us how bad you hate yourself if you missed the Hudson Swafford pick at 150 to 1 last week. Just type that in, just like, hey, I'm terrible. I should have done this and I didn't. You guys are the best.
Sorry, guys.
You can do that. If you hit that bet, then you can tell us thank you. You can do that. So there you go. Thanks for watching. May your screens be green. Have a great week. We'll be back next week. See ya.
Out.